Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus who's continuing to help me walk through my grief, and my name is Tanya. I just need a second. That song just... It just spoke to me, So tonight, this was supposed to be a fun introduction because I'm supposed to talk about how fun it is to work on our insanity cycles. It's not starting out how I planned, but our insanity cycles are when we continue to do the same things over and over, expecting a different result, except they never happen. And our insanity cycles are learned patterns of behavior that we use to help us cope with our traumas and dramas that we have gone through in our lives. And the other thing about our insanity cycles is they can give us a false sense of security, that they will help us to feel safe, comforted, or protected from pain or hurt that's happening to us. But the truth is, no matter how hard we try to avoid pain, people, or problems, it's not possible. The only thing we can control is how we respond to our hurts, habits, and hangups. Do we react with one of our insanity cycles, or do we seek God's way to respond to them? In this lesson tonight, we're going to discuss how we can prevent our insanity cycles from being our go-to reaction as we implement new solutions to living God's way in response to our hurts, habits, and hangups. So we're going to jump right in and get going with our principle and step for tonight in the corresponding scriptures that begins with principle 2, saying, earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to him, and he has the power to help me recover. Happy are those who mourn, for they will be comforted, which is Matthew 5:4. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's one of the reasons why I picked that song tonight, because I felt like it demonstrated that and expressed that in the words. Philippians 2:13, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. I think it's amazing and great news, and I hope you think so too, that it is God who is at work in us here in the CR program. We don't have to figure it all out. We don't have to know all the answers. We don't have to know what's going to happen in the future, because God already does. We just have to learn how to best follow him by knowing and applying his word and trusting that he's got us no matter what our feelings or our circumstances are. So we're going to jump into our acronym for tonight and talk about how we can prevent our insanity cycles from taking over or using them to cope, and how we can replace them with sane, new choices on how we can fulfill God's purpose in us. So if you didn't have a handout, I should just ask, did everybody get a handout? Yes, okay, great. If you didn't raise your hand, let me just say that. Nobody's raised their hand? Okay, so you're good. So the first letter in our acronym for tonight is S, and this is the first step we need to take to begin this process, which is to call upon God for his strength. Without God, we will be attempting to do our recovery in our own power, and we're going to fail. But if we have a relationship with our higher power, we can call upon him with a humble heart. He can give us the strength we need to face and replace our insanity cycles. And let me tell you, we are going to need God's strength to help us and prevent us from using our insanity cycles to cope. Because many of us have grown accustomed to our insanity cycles, and some of us have even grown to like some of our insanity cycles, so it's going to be hard for you to give them up. Others of you got to watch out that you don't try to normalize your insanity cycles by rationalizing them. For example, if you struggle with addictions and you catch yourself thinking, I could go to the bar and just have one drink, you're just rationalized. Or I can go shopping and not use my credit cards, you just rationalized. Or I can remove that porn blocker from my computer and not be tempted to watch it. We just rationalize. And we got to watch out that we don't rationalize that we're fine, in control, or in charge, or capable of not succumbing to our insanity cycles any longer. So make sure it's a warning. Make sure not to fall in love with your insanity cycles so you will be willing to give them up. And make sure you don't rationalize them by telling yourself you can handle it. And the last one I want to add that can happen sometimes when we replace our insanity cycles is sometimes we replace one insanity cycle with another insanity cycle. So some of you may have stopped drinking, but what did you replace that habit with? Smoking, food, porn, being more controlling, obsessing, shopping. There's so many ways and insanity cycles out there that if we're not careful, we could trade one in for the other and fool ourselves into believing I made progress. I made changes. I gave up this one, but we're not paying attention to the new one that we're enjoying and living out of. And so it's really important to watch what we replace our insanity cycles with. And this is why we're going to need God's help to help us discover and come out of our denial so we can notice when we're living out of our insanity cycles in these ways. And you're going to know when you're on the right track to identify them because the thought of giving up your insanity cycles as your protection plan is going to feel scary and it's going to feel uncomfortable as we work on implementing our new choices. And I want you to know feeling uncomfortable is normal, and don't allow that discomfort to keep you or make you stop. Instead, see your discomfort as an opportunity to change and heal. Thankfully, we don't have to overcome our insanity cycles in our own power because God is willing to help us. Psalm 46, 1 and 2 tells us about how he is our source. It says, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. And Psalm 73, 26, my mind and body may grow weak, but God is my strength, and he is all I ever need. These are pretty powerful truths and words to help us make these changes. In the CR here, we are learning how to see and also own who we truly are. And the truth is, we're flawed, as we just heard in that song. We're messed up, all in our very own special ways. But acknowledging the truth of our limitations is going to help us to reach out and ask God for his strength to help us change. Because we already know, left to our own accord, we're going to fail. Now, the next step we can take to maintain sanity is to work on accepting the things we cannot change. That's the next letter in your acronym for tonight, accepting. I think we've all learned the hard way already. We can't control others, and we can't control the things that happen to us. Knowing this is one thing, accepting this is another. Because many of us are still holding onto and using our insanity cycles to try and cope with our problems by avoiding, medicating, stuffing, ignoring, controlling, or pretending that problem people and our struggles don't exist. This keeps us in denial from working on what we need to accept. But when we come to terms with accepting the truth that we have a problem and our insanity cycles won't help us to properly deal with them, is when we will continue to try to change outcomes with our unhealthy patterns of behaviors. Our insanity cycles will keep us in denial until we're ready to take a look at our part and make these new changes. I discovered this for myself in a very painful way back in June of 2010 when I very first started coming here to the CR program. I had spent many years being codependent with my daughter, Rebecca. I tried to fix, control, and rescue her for years from her mental illness to no avail. She refused the help from her psychiatrist to treat her schizophrenia, and after spending most of her high school years in therapy, she continued to spiral and live out of her mental illness well into her adult life. I was one big, hot, emotional mess back then when I arrived on the scene here in June of 2010, and even though I was in a lot of emotional pain back then, I'm thankful for it because it motivated me to do what I needed to do to come here and face my pain and sorrow. I was finally ready to come to terms with facing the truth that my insanity cycles that were stemming out of my codependency of fixing, rescuing, and controlling didn't help her change, and I was finally beginning to see that I couldn't control her or her future. What I did learn and what I could focus on was what I had control over, which was me and my responses. I decided it was time for me to surrender her to God's care and control each day. As I work on implementing boundaries, I would need to replace my codependent ways. I do confess that in the beginning, this made me very anxious and uncomfortable. I was so nervous to speak up and tell her no to certain things that I had allowed and said yes to in the past. My new boundaries got reacted to a lot with a lot of yelling and being hung up on many times on the phone. which also made my anxiety worse. But I kept on giving her situation and my feelings to God. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. By trusting God for a future and my emotional well-being, when going through this, I was able to experience freedom for the first time from not having to rescue or fix her problems or poor choices. Anytime we work on making new changes in our lives, we will feel many different things. And we got to remember, whatever they are, to give them to God because he cares. The next step we can take to work on maintaining our sanity is in the next letter of your acronym. Notice new hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and take action. Philippians 1:6 says, being confident of this, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Our journey to deal with identifying and replacing insanity cycles is going to be a lifelong one. As long as we are alive and here on planet Earth, we are going to continue to experience new hurts and habits and hang-ups. And Jesus told us his work won't be completed in us until the day he returns. So we shouldn't be surprised when we notice our insanity cycles popping up with new hurts, habits, and hang-ups. This is actually a good sign when we notice our insanity cycles or the new habits, hurts, and hang-ups showing up, because it's a sign that our self-awareness is growing and that we have another opportunity to work our recovery by responding differently. Life happens to everybody. None of it, not one person in this room will be excluded from the way life shows up. And we get to decide how we will cope through our reactions. We got to take advantage of noticing our new hurts, habits, and hang-ups to work our recovery and continue to process and work on implementing positive, healthy changes. The next letter in our acronym is I, and it's another choice that we can make to help us maintain sanity in our lives, which is to invite others to help us along the way. This is not a journey to take alone. We need help from others for several reasons. One, you don't want to be the lady outside vacuuming your lawn, right? You want somebody to let you know. It's like when you're not, should be doing what you're doing. Now there's actually a lot of reasons why we want to invite others to help us along the way. There's many, but I'm only going to cover a few tonight. And one of them is to help us not feel alone. Because it can be really scary when we give up our insanity cycles finally for healthy new actions. But if we have someone to reach out to, when we're doing this, they can remind us we're not alone. They've done it too. Their support can encourage us to stay the course and not give up. Ecclesiastes 4:9 and 10 says, two are better than one. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls down and has no one to help them up. Which leads me to the second reason why we want to invite others along our journeys, because we need others to reach out to when we are about to relapse or after we have relapsed. First and foremost, anytime you're about to relapse, try to reach out. That's your best game plan to prevent relapse 100%. But if it didn't work out for you to do that, you did fall down and relapse, still reach out and let your sponsor accountability partners know, because I believe that is the quickest way we get back up and into the saddle and moving forward into our recoveries again. We should never, ever be afraid to tell others we fell down. What we should be afraid of is if we don't get back up. That's what we need to be afraid of. We need to get back up. And I believe the best way to get that going is call your sponsor accountability partner and tell them. Let them know. You will find no judgment. You will find no condemnation. You will find support and prayer. And that is the best thing to help us get back on track and working our recoveries in here. As a matter of fact, I even have a story for you to share with you tonight to demonstrate the importance and value in reaching out. And this is something that happened years ago. I want to say 10 or 12 years ago, something really bad that happened here at the church. It almost ruined us. It was so bad, we didn't think we may not even come back from this event. And before I get into the story, I want to just say, I do have permission to share it with you because it's about somebody sitting in this room. So years ago, he's look, yes, you. I was pointing at you. Where do you think I was pointing at the empty seat? Oh, sorry. You can start over. Okay, so I'm going to be telling the story. I have permission. That happened years ago. I was starting over for you. Okay. Anyway, this happened years ago before Alex became our IT guy here at the church. And the previous IT guy called it the PD incident. Now, PD stands for Pastor Dave. That's what they like. He has lots of names around here. That's just one of many of them. But that's what our IT guy back then called it. So one day, Dave and I are in the church office across the street over here. My desk is right outside of his office there. And I could tell he was having a major issue on his computer or with his computer. And so I decided to go in his office to see what it was all about. And I saw this big red flashing box on his computer screen. And it said, "You've been hacked. Call Microsoft." And they gave like 800 number. And it's beeping. It's making sounds. And by the time I walked into his office, my husband, being the super trusting guy that he is, was already on the phone with the Microsoft guy because he didn't hesitate to call the number right away. And he already gave the guy access to our network here at the church. And I walk in and I said, "Who are you talking to? And giving access to our computer network here?" And he's like, "It's the guy from Microsoft. He's helping me. I've been hacked." And I asked him, "But how do you really know that guy's from Microsoft?" And so I then recommended, "Why don't you hang up, call our IT guy, who would know, and then call this guy back." And meanwhile, while I'm saying this on one end, standing there with Dave, the guy from Microsoft on the phone saying, "You better not hang up on me because you'll lose all your data." So Dave's having that guy on the phone saying that. I'm trying to tell him, get off the phone and get this guy off our network. And needless to say, Dave didn't do anything. And sometimes we have to intervene to help people in a more direct way. So I made the suggestion to call someone who knew, but when he didn't, I proceeded to intervene by directly unplugging his computer from the network. Then my husband decided, okay, I'm going to hang up, reach out to our IT guy, and that's when he found out the truth. He was hacked by the fake Microsoft guy that my trusting husband let into the system. And I have to say, it's one of the reasons why I love you so much, because you're so trusting. You just believe the best about everybody, even hackers. People with ulterior motives, they're all innocent to you. Anyway, moral of the story is there's going to be time where we don't know what we don't know. And when we finally acknowledge that we don't always know what's the best thing to do, hopefully you'll remember this story and you'll reach out and ask for input before you take action and allow the hackers, the people with bad intentions, into your life to hurt you and cause you more pain and suffering. Reaching out is another way we can find help to get the input we need to discover new ways to cope that are healthier. So reach out when you're unsure what to do, especially those of you in a 12-step right now. You're going to have sometimes some questions in your 12-step books you just started. You're not going to know what to do with them or how to answer them or when it comes to inventory time, how do I do this? Ask questions. There's no dumb questions in here. We welcome them. We want to help you get the most out of this process and this program, but we can't if you don't tell us what you're wondering about or what you're questioning or what you're unsure of about your journey. So please talk to somebody. Another way we can try to prevent our insanity cycles from kicking in is the next letter in the acronym T for try to keep short accounts. And the truth is, we're all sinful, broken, hurting people, and we are going to hurt people we love, and they are going to hurt us. And when we see ourselves and others as the imperfect people we really are, this can help us gain perspective to remember we all do and say the wrong things at times. And hopefully, we will learn to address these moments sooner rather than later. Otherwise, these smaller issues, they're going to pile up into a great big mess of frustration, resentment, and anger. And then when that happens, one day we're going to wake up and wonder, how did our perfectly good day get ruined by our bad catitude? How did that happen? So address the dumb thing said or done immediately, whether you did it or they did it, so you can clean it up and move on by letting it go. Ephesians 4:31 and 32 says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, and brawling, and slander, along with every form of malice, and be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Showing and offering kindness, compassion, and forgiveness, whether it's to ourselves for when we blow it, or to others when they blow it, is how we work on keeping short accounts. don't let them fester. The sooner we address the problems and deal with it, the sooner we can let go and move on. If you've addressed others with kindness, compassion, and forgiveness, but you are still experiencing the toxic emotions of bitterness, rage, anger, malice, slander, then there might be something more going on in you than you realize, and you may need to take some time to pause and evaluate it. For example, if you've endured abuse, neglect, betrayal, abandonment in your life, know there's going to be emotional damage left behind in you. And those events can get triggered. So you may have to take extra steps to face and process your toxic emotions triggered from your past that are affecting your present. You may need to speak with a counselor to help you understand what else you need to do in order to work towards finding healing over the wounds that are still following you around today. Now, don't beat yourself up over it. Understand that some of our traumas and dramas may need more attention. And if you aren't able to get over it, especially if you're not able to get over the smaller issues, anything small that you can take care of and clean up, do it. The stuff you can't seem to overcome, get help. Just don't allow yourself to remain there, allowing it to fester. Find someone who can help you work through it so you can keep working on keeping short accounts. The last letter in our acronym for tonight that will help us to stay sane is by remembering your higher power is on your side. Our insanity cycles can run our lives if we have done a good job at can't run our lives if we've done a good job at establishing our identity in Christ. Think about it. What happens when we don't remember the truths about who God is or all the great things he's done for us or for so many others in the Bible? We will probably forget he is on our side in here when we are in a crisis. If we don't remember who God is, how will we have the confidence when we are facing something super painful that he's going to see us through? And if we don't remember any of the things that God has done for us in our life, or here even in this program, how will we remember that God is faithful to help us when new problems arise? The only way we keep growing and establishing our identity in Christ is when we make the effort to know and remember who he is and the things that he's done for us. Otherwise, we may end up like the Israelites. They had generations of families that lived in slavery for 430 years. God sent Moses to deliver them, but first, before they got delivered out of slavery, they watched 10 plagues be sent by God to warn Pharaoh to let them go. And then when they did finally get their freedom, they arrived at the Red Sea, and you know what they started to do? Complain. They finally get out of 430 years of slavery, and now they're complaining because they think they're stuck at the Red Sea. But God is faithful, and he parted it for them. They were able to walk through. And you know what else happened? Their shoes didn't even get muddy. Didn't even sink in the ground. They were able to walk across. And as soon as they got to the other side, Pharaoh's army started coming through. And what happened? The water came back and drowned them all. And so God took care of them. He also provided water, manna, and quail each day for them to eat and drink. And as a matter of fact, they couldn't even save any of it. They tried to save the food to eat the next day. It would be rotten. It would be moldy. They couldn't even use it the next day. They had to throw it away. God provided for them every single day. He also gave them a pillar of fire by night and cloud by day to lead them where they were walking out in the wilderness. And their clothes and their shoes never wore out. And they had a leader. They had a leader who would climb a mountain, speak directly to God, and bring him his message to them. And even in spite of all they got to see and witness, what did they spend much of their time doing? Whining, complaining, and making idols. And the cherry on top of all of that was when they told Moses they wanted to go living back in slavery. Why did you deliver us? Take us back. That was better that way. Talk about insanity cycle. I mean, that's like us asking God to send us back to living out of our addictions and compulsive behaviors because we don't want to do the work to remember how he has delivered us, how he has helped us, grown us, walked with us through some of our difficult valleys that we've been through. Facing and replacing our insanity cycles will be hard work, and sometimes it's not so fun. And to persevere through this, we will have to remember who God is and how he has helped us in the past, so we will know and remember he is on our side. We're not alone doing this. He is here to help us. He is on our side. He wants us to make positive steps, to gain his power, to make changes, to get rid of these insanity cycles, replace them with new ways to live that are healthier and whole, in living for him and in living out our lives. And as we face the complications that happen to us and come our way, and the struggles that we'll go through. I love this verse that goes with this acronym. It's Isaiah 43:2. It says, when you go through deep water and great trouble, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. In another word, God's got us. We have nothing to fear as we face our insanity cycles and learn how to replace them to live his way. He says, no matter what great trouble we are walking through, he is with us. Can you recall the last time God helped you in one of your greatest troubles? And if so, share about it tonight in your share group. And when you went through difficulties, his word says you won't drown. How many of you have gone through times in your life where you feel like you were drowning in your circumstances, but here you are tonight because of God's help, and you're still standing here and breathing and moving forward? Let us not forget who God is and the things he's already helped us to accomplish and get through. Because the truth is, no matter what we face, God is with us. So don't give up or give in. Instead, keep on working your recovery, keep coming back, and remember, you have a higher power to help you if you will call on him for strength and to be the source of your new choices. So I did add some questions to your handout tonight. If you would like to use those in your share groups, you can. You don't have to. You can work on them at home if you want to. They're just to kind of get the juices stirring and thinking about it and getting yourself to kind of process the information. Let's go ahead and stand and say the Serenity Prayer, and then we're going to head on.